implementing new safety technologies?
Well, for one is drivers do not like the cameras, period. When they first come in, it's happened so many times. They're in, especially if you tell them it's going to be an inward facing one. That's a challenge. But like I said, usually if you can exonerate them in something, they're on board 100% after that. And they won't go anywhere unless it's functioning correctly, because they want to make sure that if something happens, they're not going to be blamed. But the challenge, I think the way is being transparent with them. Show them, footage. Show them what you got. Show them like the scoring, keep them educated on what's going on, and, just give them like samples of what's happened and what orientation shows a lot of like clips to where it's like, okay, so this is why the camera is not bad. And, I do it. So safety meetings that include the same thing, basically educating on them on why the camera was important during this instant and why you shouldn't think it's the enemy, because it's not the enemy. It's actually there for your protection. And, the biggest thing I can tell them is we're not staffed here to stare at you first off 24/7. So we have no clue unless we get an alert or we know of an accident, and we're not going to look at the footage unless we know that we need to. So that once that, they're a little bit more on board with it, embracing it.
Transparency. I think that's so important working with drivers. We've kind of had a theme of that, whether it's driver advisory boards or just like you said, Christy, showing them alerts, showing them these things in orientation. I found that particularly impactful with the fleet that I worked with. During our trial period, we had an accident that the driver was not only was he exonerated, but he got a clean roadside inspection within 10 minutes of the trooper being there. And then I asked to depart the scene. Well, he went and issued a citation to the other driver. And when I delivered that information to a driver meeting, it was a virtual driver meeting with a couple hundred people on it. But the comments that rolled in after that were like, way to go, driver. That's great. Good for Helver. Those are the types of little victories that we have to share with our fleet, share with our drivers, and again, be transparent.
Absolutely.
Paul, over to you. Same exact question. What challenges can you face?
So from a fleet manager standpoint, when we're talking about the people that are outside of the safety office, the people that we're trying to get involved in this program, it's for traditional safety, it's typically a new process for them to be dealing with safety to start with. So to give them the tools, it really helps them out. The difficulty, as Chrissy said, is the driver's acceptance and buy-in in this. One of the key things to help on that, along with that transparency, is introducing them to this technology at the very beginning of their career with you. In orientations, I share a lot of video footage. I talk about the goods, the bads. I use them as learning lessons for these guys. I bring out one of the cameras and I show them physically. I pass that around the room. I explain how that works, and it elicits a lot of questions. And we keep that dialogue extremely open. The information that comes in can be very overwhelming. And one of the other challenges that I think some companies have faced, and you can Google it and see it everywhere. The negativism towards the video event recording industry has been huge, because some companies don't know how to handle it, and they handle it in my personal feelings improperly. They use it as a hammer, and they're trying to beat their drivers up instead of using it as a tool to help them to be the best driver they could possibly be. So that presentation and that use of the technology is critical in getting it in the right hands. You have to have the right people delivering that. So your fleet managers have to have training on how to utilize this information, how to present it.
Mike, I'm going to roll that question right to you, because our next question has to do with overcoming those challenges. And we've kind of just organically talked about how those challenges we faced were overcome. So Mike, same to you.
Yeah, well, I think, Adam, in a big way, we're still kind of fighting ghosts of the past. When these technologies first came out, and Netradyne was not part of this. When these technologies first came out, I believe they were rolled out to the fleets entirely the wrong way. The mentality back then when, some of the first movers came about was, hey, identify your bad drivers, fire them, make everybody know why they got fired because they got caught on camera doing something. And if you're a professional driver, and I'll use myself as an example. At the time, I was still a driver. I started my career as a driver. And the company that I worked for went with cameras very early on. They were one of the first large fleets to invest in that technology. And they went with that kind of company hammer approach. Well, I had just gotten married and had a kid and bought a house. I had a lot on the line. I did everything I could to get out of a truck as quick as I could because I was afraid. Well, what if the one time I forget to put my seatbelt on, am I out of a job? And that's a lousy way to treat folks, right? So I feel like the ghosts of the past are still present here today, with drivers having that in the back of their head, especially your older drivers. Your older drivers, the folks that have been around the block a few times, they were there for that, and they remember it, and they're not going to let it go. I've found that your younger generation of drivers are a little bit more receptive to these technologies. They kind of grown up with technology, cameras, you don't even play video games without a camera anymore for these guys. And it's kind of a way of life for them. Whereas your more veteran drivers, they were there when these things were kind of rolled out in a not driver friendly way. So Adam, I think what you said is absolutely, right on the money. And it's what we do here is orientation. I show drivers, I log into the system right in front of the drivers on a big screen.
Yep.
And I say, hey, what do you want me to click on?
Yeah, it's open book.
As long as it isn't somebody else's, private data, what do you want me to show you? I want you to know exactly what I can see. And that right there kind of disarms folks.
Yeah, it does.
And we have a different mix in the fleet too. We're an over-the-road company. We're a team operation, so we have a very high number of female professional drivers. In fact, 40% of our professional drivers are women. And we have a lot of husband and wife teams, and that's something we're really proud of. Thanks for the thumbs up on that. So because of that, driver inward-facing camera isn't exactly ideal for us. There's a lot of husband and wife teams, and there's some privacy concerns. I get it. I respect it. We don't have a driver-facing camera in our cab. Our local trucks do, where we're able to do that. It makes sense. But again, involve your drivers. Let your drivers see what you can see. Bring transparency. Let them know. And when you get those big wins, a police report that says that the big bad truck did X, Y, and Z, and you got a video that shows that the professional truck driver did none of those things. That was one of the first things I did when we had our first big win, was exactly that scenario. And I put that out to the fleet to the point that, people are like, all right, Mike, you can stop sharing this now. We totally got it. You got to celebrate the wins and make sure your drivers know, that the camera isn't there to be the weapon. The camera is there to protect you. It's there to protect the driver. It's there to protect the company.
So we had a great story with one of our drivers. He was stopped for not wearing a seatbelt. Owner operator, you can understand, we're under a contract. So, with a little bit of nervousness, we talked to the driver, showed him the video, and said, or showed him the citation, showed him where we're at, and we said, hey, look, we want to make sure that you're safe on the road. So what we're wanting to do is we're going to have the inward-facing camera turned on. So we only use ours in opportunities where we need to additionally coach or help drivers to improve habits. He agreed. So he kept his contract, and we turned that on. We immediately started seeing a lot of very dangerous, distracted driving habits. So we pulled him back in the office and showed him several clips of video, and he was shocked. He says, I did not realize I took my eyes off the road that many times. He was so shocked. From that day forward, his entire habits changed. He was no longer talking on the phone. He wasn't messing with things, taking notes on his steering wheel while going down the road. It was amazing, and he was grateful. It's a powerful thing to be able to see that type of a situation happen where a driver gets transformed and becomes better.